Welcome to Speaking Holistically, the podcast that explores the power of alternative medicine, natural healing, and homeopathic solutions to help you achieve true wellness. Each week, Dr. Jen and Amy G dive into the world of holistic health, discussing researched, time-tested remedies with expert insights from Dr. Jen, as well as real-life stories from patients to empower you to take charge of your health. So if you're ready to embrace a more natural path to wellness, let's start speaking holistically, because true healing begins from within. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Speaking Holistically. I'm your co-host, Amy G. I'm here with my amazing co-host, Dr. Jen, and a special guest today, Martha. She's going to be doing a patient story for us today. I love patient stories. I'm so excited to hear everything that you have to share with us, Martha. So go ahead and tell us your story.
Hi, so I'm going to talk today about something that about, I guess, a year ago, my daughter went to the dentist and we did an x-ray. We do them like just once a year. And the dentist said, okay, Lily, my daughter, she has 3 cavities. And I was like, oh, that's annoying. She's 13. So we had not ever been down this road. And I had texted Jen and was like, hey, what do you recommend? And she said to get some standard process Biodent. So that's what I got. So here's my little Biodent. And when doing some research on the Biodent, I also saw that Standard Process has another product called Biost. So that's here. And that they work just nicely together. So we started that. We also did some oil pooling, and we used some essential oils by a company called Living Libations. It's called Happy Gumdrops. And she did oil pooling. And in that time, then we mainly were like, we didn't want to pay the price tag of the cavities being filled. That was like, we saw a holistic dentist. That was kind of the big thing was, okay, maybe we could do something about reversing these or helping the teeth just repair. So in the time, 6 months, we went to our now dentist, and he has actually been my dentist since I was 5 years old. Oh, wow. And he is not holistic, but was, interested in what we did. But anyway, we started the Biost and the Biodent and the oil pooling, and we did that for 6 months. We were pretty religious about her taking the supplements every single day. And when we went for the 6 month later at the new dentist, they wanted to do the initial x-rays, and they came back and they're like, there's no cavities. Whoa. So there was nothing to fill and nothing to do anything with. So that's kind of our story with what we did for our daughter, for using those products and just pretty religious. Now, of course, she really cut down and like diet wise, like she's kind of like a Cheez-It addict. So that was like one thing that we tried to cut out, was anything that was just kind of sitting on the teeth, and just kind of cleaned up her diet a little bit too. But those are the main products that we use to kind of help reverse that for her.
So for those people who don't know what oil pulling is, it's basically the act of putting a teaspoon of oil in your mouth. Sometimes it's coconut oil, sometimes it's sesame oil. Putting that in your mouth and swishing it around for a period of time. I know we've talked about it briefly in some of the other podcasts, but it will help kind of pull some of the bacteria out from between the teeth and the gums and stuff like that. And then you don't swallow it, you spit it in the trash. Do not spit it down your drain, or you will have a more expensive plumbing phone call than what the dental visit would have cost. So the oil pulling can be really important. Oil by itself is fine. You can add essential oil. Martha, you added, what's it called? Happy Gum, you said?
Happy Gum. Yeah, Happy Gumdrops.
Happy Gumdrops. Okay, so.
Yeah, Living Libations.
And then how much did you put in the teaspoon of oil?
Probably maybe 2 or 3 drops. I don't know, I've also used clove oil, just like straight clove oil, and that can be so spicy. I can tell this has clove oil in it too. So it doesn't seem to bother her. It's more of like, it can be kind of gross, the oil pooling, but it's effective.
It works so well, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then generally I have patients take like 6 Biost and 6 Biodent together. So how many Biodent were you giving Lily during this time frame?
So I was giving her on a daily basis. She was taking 5 Biodents and 2 Biost twice a day. So 5 and 4.
Okay.
So 5 Biodents and 4 Biost at that time.
Perfect. And then you also added some homeopathic. So this is, phosphorus can be really important for bone and teeth healing. And the thing, let me just preface this too. There's some dentists out there that are like, oh, you can't heal the cavities. And I'm like, it's bone. Like if you broke your arm, your doctor wouldn't be like, oh, well, your arm's broken. It's going to be broken forever, that sort of thing. And in some situations, if you have a full on fracture that's completely separated from itself and moved across each other, and there's no chance it's going to ever come back together again, that's a different story, obviously. But the situation of teeth, generally speaking, depending on how long you've let it go or how quickly you've caught it, they can be healed for sure. And it's a heck of a lot cheaper than having them filled over and over and over again. So,
yeah.
So anyway, so you did some homeopathics as well.
Well, so after Lily's whole thing, then I'll transition then into my little tooth issue. I actually had a root canal about 10 years ago. I'd had this root canal. Last October, the enamel on the root canal cracked. And wow, there was like some major bacteria underneath there because my breath has never smelled so horrendous in my life. And I went back to the dentist because I was like, well, there's clearly something dying in my mouth. Oh yeah, it's the tooth that's rotting away under the root canal. So they ended up wanting to redo the root canal and put a crown on it. My body was like rejecting the whole time. But while doing that, I was like, all right, I'm going to start on the tooth stuff that I did for Lily, the Biodent. And then I got 2 homeopathics. They're by Jackson's. There's Calc Floor. That was one that I got. And the other one was Calc Phos. And this was recommended that I saw on how to strengthen your teeth. Since my body rejected that whole root canal, and I'm so glad it did, I just had the tooth pulled. So the tooth is gone. But when I went to the dentist for my 6-month checkup, after I had this tooth pulled, the dentist said, oh yeah, that tooth in the back that is next to the tooth you had pulled is starting to get a cavity. And I said, no, thank you. So I immediately came home and I started myself on the Biodent, and the homeopathics, and that's been going on for about 2 weeks. I've been consistently taking those. And then when I go back in 6 months, we'll have a conversation about, okay, what does this look like now? I did do an x-ray over there because they wanted to make sure where I had that tooth removed that there was no like further decay or anything going on underneath. So they had an x-ray of that back tooth. She didn't say when she looked at the x-ray, oh yeah, there's decay. It was like when she looked in my mouth and she was like, I can see that there's starting to be a cavity that's starting there. And she said, it's probably because you're just not brushing back there because you have that missing tooth. And I said, no, like I'm like obsessively brushing that back tooth because I need to have a tooth back there so I can chew food on the right side of my face. So yeah, so I started this. And so that'll be 6 months. I guess I go back in 5. So we can do this again in 5. I'll let you know.
Perfect. You can update us, and then we have other stuff to talk to you about as well. But so for anybody who knows, the homeopathics, the Calc Flor and Calc Phos is a homeopathic, like a healthy version of fluoride and phosphorus. So they're fluoridating our water. I wouldn't consider that a healthy source of fluoride. And putting it in toothpaste isn't necessarily a healthy form of it either. So it's interesting because when I was younger, I like my teeth a lot. So that's like the one thing, well, I take care of myself anyway, but the teeth were really important. So in grade school, I would actually take my toothbrush and my toothpaste to school every single day. And I remember in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade, whatever, after lunch, I would brush my teeth immediately after lunch.
Wow.
So I didn't eat any sugar. Yeah, no, I didn't eat any sugar. My parents made my lunches for me when I was little and stuff like that. We drank water, really not a whole lot of anything else. But I had a lot of cavities. And my brother, who never brushed his teeth, literally, he would put put toothpaste on his tongue so that it would smell like he brushed his teeth to breathe in my parents' face at night. And he had like no cavities. So there is a difference between healthy forms of basically fluoride and non-healthy forms of fluoride, kind of like iodized salt and kelp-based iodine. Like there's a completely different, it's a different structure. So it does different things in your body. So that's definitely something for people to consider as well. And also x-rays, we try to keep our dental x-rays to an absolute minimum. In fact, our kids didn't have any dental x-rays until, well,
Their wisdom
one of
teeth.
them still had.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, wisdom teeth at
Yeah.
17 and 19 years old. So we
Wow.
didn't do any, and our kids have had no cavities whatsoever. But it also is dependent upon diet as well. Also processed food, sugar, stuff like that, all that stuff will change the pH of your mouth. And there are tests out there that you can check the bacteria count in your mouth of different bacteria and see what's actually causing these issues or starting these issues, and then fix that. So there's a lot out there for sure. But Martha's taken a really, really proactive approach, which is awesome. And honestly, you catch those little things soon enough and you can turn the Titanic around before it hits the iceberg, right?
Yeah, and we don't use any fluoride-based toothpaste at all either. So that was kind of already set in motion. There was nothing that we had to switch there. But I don't know how she got the cavities. It was weird. It was like, we don't do the x-rays either. And I think we had done maybe like it 2 or 3 years before. And then she was like, let's do a check-in. And so when we did, and then she's like, she has 3. Now she was in middle school. So their middle school allows them to chew gum throughout the day. We don't allow them to chew gum at home. And so I think that was a piece too. And the dentist asked her, are you chewing gum? And she looked at me at the dentist office and she was like, only at school. And I was like, it's your fault. I mean, there's other contributing factors, but the Cheez-Its that sit on the back of her teeth probably are a huge portion of why they're there, but that's doing the best we can.
So she went back. No, we all are doing the best job we can. And that's what this is about, is like giving little bits of information. There might be one thing that somebody gets out of each podcast and they can just make those little switches, those little changes. It doesn't have to be life altering, like empty out your house of everything that you have, just knowing that there are options. And, there might be somebody out there that's willing to do the Bios and the Biodent. And maybe some oil pulling, or they might do the homeopathics, and anything that they can do that's going to help their bodies heal is going to obviously be super, super important. So, So I know that you do things really, really natural, Martha. I know that for sure. So I've known you a lot of years. So as far as Lily's diet, as far as like what she drinks, so how do you feel like that plays a role at all into it?
No, because pretty much she only drinks water. We don't have any soda in the house. We do like some sparkling, like we have plain LaCroix because we're fancy like that. We just have the plain. But that's pretty much it. There's one other, like every once in a while I'll get like, there's like a probiotic drink that she likes from the grocery store called Good Belly. But that's probably about it. We're pretty much just water. We don't even drink milk. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Because raw milk actually can help those bones, but once it's pasteurized, once everything is burned out of it, it actually can increase other health issues. There was research 25 years ago, probably 25, 30 years ago, that showed that with the pasteurization process, that there was only one enzyme retained after the heating process or the pasteurization process. And it was xanthine oxidase, which they were finding was one of the primary enzymes responsible for atherosclerosis, for hardening of the arteries.
Mm-hmm.
And they were finding kids in Texas on the WIC program that were already like 3, 4, 5 years old that were having hardening of the arteries because of the amount of pasteurized dairy that they were eating.
Wow.
Or drinking. So, that once again, you can take one thing that's healthy. Like if you took raw milk, okay, and you drank that, it could be good for your body. It may not be good for your body. It just depends on your ethnicity, like your backgrounds and stuff like that too. I had a Mexican kid who came in as a patient and ended up with really bad diarrhea, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. So I took him off of all the dairy because in Mexico, generally speaking, they don't use a lot of cow-based dairy. It's more goat cheese and stuff like that. So it's more goat-based. So we live in the United States where everybody eats everybody else's foods. And so genetically, it's not always the healthiest thing for everybody, right? So he's now what 3 or 4 years down the road, he starts having diarrhea. In fact, to the point that he'd been hospitalized 8 times in 6 months for dehydration because of the diarrhea. So they finally reach out to me again, and they're like, we don't know what to do. And I said, okay, like, he's got to be doing dairy. No, we asked him. So they drive him 2.5 hours down to my office, and I look him dead in the eye and I said, are you doing any milk or cheese? And he was like, yes. So he's on the school lunch program, and he's having milk every day, chocolate, strawberry, what do you want? You know, pick your poison, really. So he's drinking milk every day. And then the other options were cheeseburgers and cheese pizza. So, or mac and cheese. It's like all cheese. That's all he was eating every single day. So they were like, we asked you. I mean, they were kind about it. I would have lost it a lot more than they did. But I mean, the fact that they drove 5 hours round trip because their kid lied to them.
Oh, no.
So, but once again, what's good for one person or what form of it? So like, let's say raw dairy can be good for some people. The other person, you know, maybe not, or raw dairy is fine, but then you do the pasteurized and it completely changes that story. So same thing goes for pretty much everything. And like I said, genetically, we're not all created the same. So our bodies are going to react differently to different foods. And, you know, if you go back to the origin of your ethnicity, you'll see what foods they ate tend to be healthier for their bodies versus somebody else. So something to think about for sure. Cheez-Its, though, I'm not sure if those were part of anybody's ethnicities, but
They were.
But we all have our weaknesses, right? So we all have our things that we like and stuff, and sometimes those little things can just build up. And you know, some of the stuff that Lily was doing, but she has Martha, who is very well educated and very proactive and doesn't take no for an answer. I can guarantee you that. So and honestly, it's cheaper to do it this way than it would be to continually be going back. You know, I'm always thinking you're buying the foods or the drinks or whatever it is, or the lifestyle, whatever you're doing, that's causing the issue. So now you've paid for this stuff to make you sicker, and now you have to pay to fix this stuff. I'm thinking, I'm too cheap for that. Like, I'll just stop whatever I'm doing bad so I don't have to pay for it twice.
Yeah. And that's how I felt about the supplements too. Like our dentist, when we got quoted for the 3 cavities, we went to a holistic dentist. So her prices were through the roof anyway. And she was like, it's going to be $1,500 to fill the 3 cavities. And I thought, no, that's crazy. And I thought, I'm just going to try. I'm just going to buy the supplements. What is that going to cost me? $150? What if they don't work? Okay, fine. Then we can navigate and pivot and move from there. But for us, it was like, let's just try that before dumping $1,500 into 3 cavities. So.
Well, and the BIOS and the BioDent, those are both whole food supplementation, right? So you're going to get a benefit from it. Whether or not it completely fixes the issue, in your case it did, but it's really about feeding the body, giving it the proper nutrients so it has the opportunity to heal optimally, whatever that will be for each individual person. So, I mean, you pulled out all the stops. I mean, you did the BIOS, the BioDent, the oil pulling, the happy gum drops, the calc phos, the calc floor, you know, and you also changed her diet. Like, that's huge. So you did everything that needed to be done, and you got the results that you were looking for. So, and I have plenty of patients that will come in and be like, I don't really want to drink water. I'm like, that's the cheapest, easiest thing that you can do. Like, I don't, like, I would start with that for sure over anything that's going to cost me a ton of money. So, and the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is the fluoride that's in the water source, in our water, you know, municipal water situation too, is something that you might want to consider filtering out. So,
yeah. So that was another like question mark for us, is we actually had a reverse osmosis put in probably 6 months before that. Now, it's not like she was drinking like straight up tap. We had like our fridge water did have a filter, but it didn't filter out any fluoride. So that was another thing I guess I should have mentioned, was then we used like mineral drops to add back in some of the healthy minerals back into the water. I mean, they don't know that I add it to like their smoothies in the morning, but it's there. So to me, that was another thing that was kind of on the back of my mind was I wonder if people who have the reverse osmosis, do they have more cavities because they're not then bringing in some of the healthier minerals to help the body out? Because it's kind of filtering out everything, right? The RO.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and that's exactly it. I mean, it's really tough. And we found a great filtration system for our house that we loved. And they're no longer selling it, which means we're no longer finding the filters for it. So now we've got to buy our third for the house because I'm like, oh, it's so frustrating. But it's cheaper than us buying bottled water. I don't want it in plastic. And I don't want an RO system in my house because it does deplete the minerals out of your body. You do need certain minerals that are in the water, found in the water. But the problem is filtering out the wrong ones, if you will, filtering out the ones that aren't so good for our bodies. So if you do have an RO system at home, and Martha brings up a really good point, definitely add minerals to your water. It can be Himalayan salt, which have, I think, 82 or 84 different micro minerals, just a pinch of it, and you won't taste it. You won't even know it's in there, but it can be really helpful. And people go, well, if salt brings up your blood pressure, I'm like, not real salt, And you're not doing enough of it. It's not like you're doing 1,250 milligrams of sodium when you go to like a Mexican restaurant and you come out like a puffer fish. Like it's a totally different situation, So
yeah.
And Martha, I'll share a little aside with you. So just hearing you say the $1,500 to fill the 3 cavities, and I talked about this in a different, Jen and I talked about this in a different episode, but I had a coworker years ago whose son never brushed his teeth. And when he was 8 years old, he went to the dentist, he had 8 cavities. And he would scream and cry, and he didn't want them to put to numb his gums to fill his teeth. And she's like, yeah, he just won't let it. He's just so scared. And so she paid $4,000 to have him put under to fill all 8 cavities. And this was 20 something years ago. And I still remember it because it was like, I just thought that was crazy. My parents would have done that. But she was like, yeah, he's scared. And I was like, I was scared when I was a kid too and had to get a cavity filled. That was what was going to happen. There was no negotiating. There was no put me under because I'm scared. But yeah, $4,000. And again, that was,
I would have dropped him off at a fire station and adopted him out before I paid that. And my kids know it.
Yeah.
Not really for those listeners.
Yeah.
But it's like that's crazy. It's crazy talk. So yeah, if you can heal this, maybe it takes a year, and maybe you wait a year to go get it checked out, or less. Yeah. It definitely can make a huge difference just making those different choices. So good job, Martha, again with the kids and yourself.
I know. What a great story. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jen. I mean, honestly, when I think I was driving home and I did a voice text to you and I was like, hey, so healing cavities. And you're like, yup, Biodent. And I was like, okay, great. I'll grab it. Because our health food store, they sell the standard process in the store. Somebody there must be able to be certified or whatever you have to do. And so they sell it and they're immediately like, yep, we'll order it. Because they're like, nobody ever orders this. I'm like, well, I will be. So keep it in stock. So yeah.
No, and it's a great idea. I mean, I just gave it to one of my son's friends and she's got some stuff going on with her teeth. And I'm like, look, you can heal it if you want to. It's really up to you, but you've got to change your diet too. You can't just it's like you have a kidney issue and you're just going to drink a thimble of water a day. It's like, well, I'm drinking more water than I was. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not enough from where you got yourself to bring yourself all the way back. So yeah, it's good for the BIOS, the Biodent. Even Ostrophin is another one that I'll use, especially if there's a lot of repair that needs to be done or there's bone marrow involvement. I'll use the Ostrophin with the Biodent, the BIOS, but those are some really good ones that will definitely manage and help. And I've seen it help with osteoporosis. I've seen it help with osteopenia. I had a patient, actually, she opened the door. This was before she started seeing me. She opened the door and a bird flew into her house and she ducked and broke her spine. Broke one of her vertebrae, fractured it. I mean, that's how brittle she was. And she's not that old. I mean, I would say she's in her mid 60s or early 60s. And so we started doing these minerals, the BIOS, the Ostrophin, stuff like that. And I'm able to adjust her and we've got no worries of fracture. We've got no worries of anything. I have another patient who has osteogenesis imperfecta. So it's called OI, and it's basically brittle bone disease. And she's about 3'9" I believe. And I mean, she has probably had 32 surgeries because of broken bones, and her bones are just so brittle. So, I started giving her ostrophin for sure. She's still taking that and some other stuff, and I'm able to adjust her. And she's like, no other chiropractor is willing to touch me. And I'm like, well, I might be a little crazy, but I mean, I'm able to adjust her feet, her ribs, her vertebrae, I mean, her neck, everything. And at the beginning, I was adjusting her with 2 fingers with respiration because things did not feel as solid as they should. And now with these supplements like the ostrophin and the Biost, and I think we're giving her Biodent as well, but and some other CalMag, I mean, we're loading her up on our minerals, and night and day, has had no broken bones since she's been seeing me, and even with my Hulk Hogan adjusting. So there's going to be people out there like, who's Hulk Hogan?
Your audience is probably old enough. They know. Jen, one other thing.
Thanks, Martha.
Yeah, we're fine. One of the things that I also got when I had that tooth removed was like a red light little thing. Do you think that those help?
They can.
Yeah,
they can. There's a lot of stuff out there now. I've been using red light therapy for at least 15, 16, 17 years. So I didn't think it was going to get this popular, just like essential oils I've been using for 23, 24, 25 years. And had no idea when I first started using. People are looking at me like I was crazy, and now everybody's got a plethora of them in their home, So the red light therapy can be good. A lot of times though, there are people selling them that it is not therapeutic, like it's
just a red light.
So that's the biggest thing. And I use a company called Biophotos, and it's Celluma. So it's Celluma. I use them pretty much exclusively. Patrick, the owner, my gosh, like 17, 18 years ago, he actually talked me into my first unit of the Celluma. And since then, I mean, my son broke his arm. We used that twice a day for 15 minutes. And in 3 days, he was pain-free. And in a week, he had full range of motion. And his ulna was broken 95% through. I broke my ankle. I used it twice a day. And within 8-9 days, I was in a tennis shoe. So like, it's pretty impressive. He actually, I believe, if I remember correctly, he used it 4 times a day on rotator cuff tear. And so he put it on 4 times a day, and it turns off at 30 minutes. So it's FDA approved for home use and everything. So it shuts off after so much time on its own. So if you fall asleep, you're not going to destroy yourself or anything. But he did that 4 times a day, 6 weeks, went back to his ortho, and his ortho said that they did another MRI and everything was healed. He didn't have to have surgery now for his torn rotator cuff.
Wow.
So, at first I thought he was just BSing me. I'm like, oh, he's just trying to sell a unit. I'm kind of, I don't trust everybody. Let's just put it that way. So I did buy 1 unit, and it proved to be pretty impressive. And my patients definitely saw a huge shift in it. So there's a lot of my patients that will buy it, and they do have a pod. They have a small one. And so you can use it for your face or whatever, but it's a smaller kind of unit. So Martha, it could have totally helped. I just don't know what the technology behind it is and what company it is and stuff like that. Sure. So yeah. So there are some out there that work, and there's some that not. And especially on Amazon, it's anyone's guess. So
yeah, great.
Yeah. But I mean, bringing, and a lot of times too, just heating that area up, or even oil pulling and stuff like that. Sometimes just that sucking action of things as well can also bring blood to that area. And when you bring blood to an area, it brings healing properties, right? So there's a lot of research that's changing, because we used to ice things. When somebody sprained an ankle, they iced it. And it was like, okay, so you're like slowing down the blood supply to that area. Like, don't all that stuff. So short-term inflammation can be good. Long-term inflammation is a terrible idea. And there's that differentiation. So I know we've jetted off into all these different tangents, but I mean, it absolutely could have. I don't know. And yes or no. And it depends on the person's body and what they need. But anytime you bring blood to an area, generally speaking, short-term like that is going to help heal it, because it's bringing all those nutrients, the oxygen, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's all I got to say about that one.
That's it.
I feel like Forrest Gump. Hey, real quick, tell us what happened with that gash on your forehead, because you don't normally look like Harry Potter.
I know, it would be cooler if it was over here. That would be like a dream come true. And then a permanent scar. I'd be really into that. Yeah, so yesterday I was gardening, and like there's this strip of like dirt on the side of my driveway, and we covered it with leaves. It's like where we put all of our like wildflowers. And I was gardening, and this PVC pipe that sticks out of the house, I don't know, for the furnace. I don't know what it does. It's just there for decoration. It's super cute. And so I like was just weeding and gashed my head, and I thought, oh, that hurt. And then I put my garden glove up to it, and I was like, maybe I'm not bleeding. And then I like held it there for a second. And there's just blood everywhere all over my garden glove. I was like, I am bleeding. So I went inside and cleaned it. And then I put 2 Band-Aids on it and then continued on. But I was sweaty. They fell off. My whole family's like, maybe you should go get that looked at. I'm like, nope, it's fine. I made calendula cream a couple of years ago because I had calendula flowers in my garden. I was like, wait, I will pull out my cream and put it on there. That's what I have out there right now.
So, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. See, she's very resourceful. I love it.
Well, I grew these flowers for some reason. I don't know why. I was like, I don't know, during COVID, like what else do I need in this like medicinal little garden? And threw those in there. They are prolific. They never die. And they are growing everywhere all over my yard now. It's basically like a dandelion. I can't get rid of them. But I thought, well, what am I going to do with all these flowers? So I found a recipe on making an ointment. And this will last me literally until the end of time. And I have 3 of these jars. And anytime my kids have any cuts or like a sunburn, I'm like, get the calendula ointment. They're like, we're good. We don't need it.
It's like Windex, for the Greek. And Amy can attest to that. So
yeah, my husband's 100% Greek. I will say though, they don't use Windex for everything like that. So I guess I don't know. Maybe that's if you live in Greece, maybe you do that. But they're all Americanized, his family, so they don't.
And for anybody who hasn't seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, you won't get that reference. Yeah. But yeah, they use Windex for everything. Like, oh, come here, he's going after him with the spray bottle. So that's Martha with her calendula. So I don't know, maybe it sounds like you should probably, bottle and sell it.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have 3 of these. I could just, carve some out, send it to you guys, whoever.
Well, and it sounds like they're still growing, so you have an operation there that you could get moving too.
Endless supply.
And it is literally endless. I can already see the stems coming up. I'm like, okay, those are in a different spot this year. I guess this is my life now. So now I'm a calendula farmer.
Well, and as bad as you said the cut was, I mean, as much as you were bleeding, I mean, I have to say, from what I can see on the video here, it doesn't look that bad. I think the calendula oil is really helping. The ointment.
Yeah, I put it on yesterday afternoon, and then put it on again before I went to bed, and then this morning. I mean, it's fine. It's not bleeding. It's just there, and I'm going to just keep it on until I feel like it's done. So
I love it. I love it.
Well, Martha, thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, I love patient stories. I love to hear what their journey looks like and how they've healed themselves naturally and what Jen has done for them. We're going to have you back for another episode. I'm going to leave it up as the audience's suspense. I'm not going to tell them what you're coming back to us for, but you'll be our first repeat guest for a different patient story, a different page out of your life. And I'm personally super excited about that. So thank you for joining us today. Thank you, Dr. Jen, for your wisdom and knowledge as always. And thanks everybody for listening. If you haven't joined our school community before, I'll put the link in the show notes. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, everybody. Bye-bye. That wraps up another episode of Speaking Holistically. Thank you for listening. We hope today's conversation gave you new insights and inspiration to take charge of your health. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, be sure and join the Speaking Holistically school community by clicking the link in the show notes. There, you'll get access to daily podcast episodes, weekly live Q&As, educational content, and so much more. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, be well, stay curious, and keep speaking holistically.